Good morning. This is John from the Springs Mennonite Church. And I'm here again today to talk about the question of who is Jesus, as revealed in the 9th chapter of the Gospel of John. Now, if you recall, prior to this is the story of a man who was born blind, that Jesus made mud and he washed it off, and he got healed. He could see again. And as a result of that, people started questioning if he really was the guy who was born blind. And how did Jesus do this? So we find ourselves now at verse 24, and this is the Jewish leaders who are questioning the man. So it reads this way. So for the second time, they called in the man who had been blind and told him, God should get the glory for this, because we know that this man Jesus is a sinner. And the man replied, I don't know whether he's a sinner or not. What I know is I was blind and now I can see. And they said, but what did he do? How did he heal you? And the man said, look, I told you once. Didn't you listen? Why do you want to hear it again? Do you want to become his disciples too? Well, they didn't appreciate that conversation. And usually people who think they know everything don't like to be confronted. But that's exactly what's happening here. The Jewish leaders, who are supposed to know about God, are confronted by Jesus in a way that they can't figure it out. As it says here, they called him in the second time. I, you know, what were they thinking? Did this guy really make up being blind the first time and now he's going to admit that he was faking it? Or did they just want to try to make their point in a different way? They don't really want to know who Jesus is. At least I don't think they did. I think they were looking for a way to shut this guy up. And a lot of people, they don't want to know what God's doing. They don't want anybody else to tell them what's going on. They're satisfied in knowing that they know everything, even if they don't. So in any case, they bring this guy in and they say this. This is very profound. They say God should get the glory for this. Interestingly, who did they think was getting the glory? Well, obviously, they thought Jesus was. That's good. He did it. He's the one that worked the miracle. But what they don't get is all that Jesus has said about being with God, being God. Now, of course, in their mindset, that was an impossible thing to think, I guess. They just had no understanding that God could be in front of them in a human form. Many people today still can't. The Pharisees, the Jewish leaders, weren't open to God doing something different than what they anticipated. So I'll just ask a question here. Are you open to God doing something different than what you anticipated? See, I found out over the years, every time I put God in a box, this is who God is, he jumps out. And he keeps reminding me that he's God and I'm not. Well, this guy is really an interesting fellow. The leaders go on to say, God should get the glory because we know this man's a sinner. Jesus is a sinner. And the guy says, well, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. All I know is now I can see. Of course, Jesus wasn't a sinner. Otherwise, he couldn't have been the Savior. Jesus is the person who radically interrupts our lives and does things we weren't expecting. Why? Well, I suppose you could boil it all down to he cares about us. You know, nobody had ever tried to do anything about this man's sight. Now, I know they didn't have surgery and they didn't have the kinds of doctors we have now in medicine, but they just left him there to beg and plead. Even his parents doesn't seem like they had a lot to do with it. And the Jewish leaders are just mad. And what are they mad about? They're mad that this guy got touched by God and can see now. You know, I don't care how God works. I really don't. When he works, I give him the credit. And so this interaction with the Jewish leaders and the man gets carried away another step. It goes a little further, which we won't do today, but they said to him, how did he do this? Well, the guy doesn't know. I mean, he told him about the mud. He washed it off. He could see. That's all he knows. How does God heal? I don't know. Sometimes he heals through physicians. Sometimes he heals through medicine. Sometimes he heals through our own actions. Sometimes he just miraculously touches people. The point is, he heals. And so the guy says to them, I told you what he did. Didn't you listen? And then he makes the fatal mistake of the whole conversation. Listen, do you want to become his disciples too? Oh, you could see the religious leaders get angry and red, their hair's cackling on their neck as they say, oh, they're gonna pounce on the guy. What do you mean? We don't want to be with him. Well, as so often, God keeps moving in our world, and we're left to just try to notice it. We don't have to make sense out of what God does. We just have to follow him. This guy did what Jesus told him to do. And guess what? He got healed. Maybe you and I can learn something from this. Maybe if we'll just do what Jesus says to do, whatever it is. Maybe something simple like forgive somebody who's hurt you. We might find ourselves changed people. At least we know this. God's intention for us is the same as for this man, to change his life for the better. Well, you think about that one. I'll be back tomorrow. I have some other ideas. If you have a need or a concern that we can help with it, please let us know. And we'll do anything we can as fast as we can to help meet your need. Thanks so much for listening. I'll be back tomorrow.